The wine hit her face at exactly 9:47 p.m. By 9:48, 300 phones had captured it. By 9:52, Evelyn Harris had made a single call that would erase the Rogers family from the business world entirely. They didn't know the woman they humiliated in front of the city's elite owned the company signing their deal. They didn't know she'd been watching them all night, cataloging every cruelty, every dismissive glance, every venomous word they thought no one important could hear. They didn't know that red wine on a black tuxedo would cost them everything, their company, their fortune, their future. But they were about to learn that some stains never wash out. And some people you mistake for servants are actually the ones who decide whether you survive. Hello, amazing people. Welcome back to Echoverse, the home where forgotten voices finds their echo. Before we dive deeper into today's incredible story, kindly hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already and comment below where you're watching from. Your support means to us, and it helps us bring you even more exciting stories. Now let's begin. The Ashford Grand Ballroom looked like old money had vomited gold leaf and good taste everywhere it could reach. Crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars. Marble columns imported from somewhere impressive. Tables draped in ivory silk. Each centerpiece worth more than a semester of college tuition. Everything glittered. Everything smiled. Everything looked polished. But arrogance in a $10,000 gown is still arrogance. Tonight was supposed to be the Rogers Group's coronation, the deal of the decade, a multi-million-dollar partnership with Harris Consolidated, a private equity firm so discreet, so maddeningly elusive, that even the business journals couldn't get a clear photo of its owner, the mystery investor, the ghost who moved markets with a signature and never showed their face. Until tonight, Evelyn Harris stood near the third marble column from the left, a glass of sparkling water in her hand she hadn't sipped from in 20 minutes. She was 28, though most people in this room would guess younger. She wore a tailored black tuxedo jacket, crisp white shirt, and a black bow tie, the kind of formal attire that should have screamed executive but instead whispered staff. That was the point. She'd chosen the outfit carefully. Smart enough to belong in the room. Simple enough to be invisible in it. The service staff wore nearly identical uniforms, and Evelyn had pulled her dark hair back into a severe bun that made her look efficient, forgettable, and, to the people who mattered here, beneath notice. She wanted to see how the Rogers family operated when they thought no one important was watching. Turns out, they operated exactly like she'd suspected. "Excuse me, miss." A woman in a rose gold gown with a face full of Botox and judgment snapped her fingers near Evelyn's shoulder. "Could you take this to the kitchen? It's room temperature. Unacceptable." She thrust a champagne flute toward Evelyn without making eye contact. Evelyn took it without a word, set it on a passing server's tray, and returned to her position by the column. The woman didn't even notice. She'd already turned back to her conversation, laughing too loud at something that wasn't funny. This had been happening all night. "You there, can you find my coat?" "Sweetheart, we need more shrimp cocktail at table 7. "Do you work here?" "My husband spilled wine. Bring a cloth." Evelyn said nothing, did nothing, just watched. Across the ballroom, on the raised platform near the floor-to-ceiling windows, Jace Rogers stood at the microphone, mid-40s salt and pepper hairstyle with the kind of precision that cost $200 a session, custom-tailored Tom Ford suit. He had the smooth, rehearsed charm of a man who'd spent his entire life convincing people to trust him with their money. "And so tonight, we celebrate not just a partnership, but a transformation," Jace was saying, his voice booming with confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Harris Consolidated saw what we've built here, and they didn't just invest in Rogers Group. They invested in a vision." Applause. Perfectly timed. Perfectly loud. Standing beside him, radiant in an emerald green evening gown, that probably cost more than most people's cars, was Nina Rogers, Jace's wife, the company's director of public relations, and if the internal documents Evelyn had reviewed were accurate, the single most toxic personality in the building. Nina's smile was flawless, her posture impeccable, but her eyes, sharp, cold, constantly scanning, betrayed the truth. She wasn't celebrating. She was hunting. And right now, those eyes had locked onto Evelyn. Nina leaned toward her husband, whispered something behind a manicured hand. Jace glanced over mid-sentence, following her gaze. His smile tightened, just for a second, just enough. Evelyn felt the shift in the air. She took a slow breath and stayed exactly where she was. Jace wrapped up his speech to thunderous applause, and the live band started up again, something classical and safe. Guests returned to their champagne and their small talk and their casual cruelty. But Nina Rogers was moving, cutting through the crowd with Jace at her side, her emerald dress flowing like water, her expression a perfect mass of politeness that didn't reach her eyes, headed directly toward Evelyn. Evelyn set her glass down on a nearby table, straightened her bow tie, and waited. This was the part she'd been expecting, the part where everything went irreversibly, catastrophically wrong for them. Nina stopped 3 feet away, close enough to make a confrontation, far enough to maintain plausible deniability. Jace stood slightly behind her, arms crossed, expression somewhere between irritated and condescending. "Hi there." Nina's voice was sweet poison. "I don't think we've met. Are you with the catering team?" "No," Evelyn said simply. Nina's smile flickered. "Oh, well, you're dressed like—" She gestured vaguely at Evelyn's outfit. "I just assumed. So are you a guest?" "I'm here for the signing," Evelyn replied, her tone flat and unhurried. Jace let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "The signing? Sweetheart, this is a VIP event. Invitation only. If you're looking for the service entrance—" "I'm not." Nina's eyes narrowed. The mask slipped just a fraction. "Then maybe you can explain why you're standing in a restricted section, dressed like you're about to serve canapes at my company's event." Evelyn met her gaze. Steady, unflinching. "I want to see how you treat people when you think no one's watching." The words landed like a slap. Nina's smile vanished. Jace's expression darkened. And across the ballroom, heads began to turn. This was about to get much, much worse. The murmurs started small, a ripple of curiosity spreading through the nearest tables as guests noticed Nina Rogers. The Nina Rogers, standing rigid in the center of the ballroom, staring down someone dressed like the help. Evelyn didn't move, didn't flinch, just held Nina's gaze with a kind of calm that came from knowing exactly how this night would end. "You wanted to see how we treat people?" Nina's voice had lost its sweetness entirely. Now it was just cold. "Let me save you the suspense. Whoever you are, we treat people with respect when they've earned it, when they belong. When they're not," she looked Evelyn up and down, lip curling, "crashing events they have no business attending." Jay stepped forward, hand raised like he was calming a spooked horse. "Look, I don't know who let you in, but this is a private function. If you leave quietly, we won't make a scene." "Too late," someone whispered from a nearby table. Phones were already out. Not obviously, just tilted at casual angles, screens glowing faintly in the dim lighting. Recording, watching, waiting for something worth posting. Evelyn shifted her weight, the slightest movement, and Jace's jaw tightened. "Did you hear me?" His voice climbed half an octave. The carefully maintained executive charm was cracking. "I said leave." A server passed by, young guy, maybe 19, carrying a tray of champagne flutes. Jace grabbed his arm without looking at him. Do you know this woman?" The server's eyes went wide. He glanced at Evelyn, then at Jace, then back at Evelyn. No, sir, I don't. Then she doesn't work here. Jace released him with a dismissive shove. The server stumbled, nearly dropped the tray, and hurried away, which means she's trespassing. Nina took a step closer, close enough that Evelyn could smell her perfume. Something floral and expensive and cloying. You know what I think. Nina's smile returned, but it was all teeth now. I think you're one of those people. The ones who show up to fancy events hoping to network, hoping someone will mistake you for important. She laughed. Light, airy, designed to humiliate. Several guests joined in. Nervous laughter. The kind people make when they're uncomfortable but don't want to be left out. Evelyn said nothing. Her expression didn't change. She just stood there, hands clasped loosely in front of her, looking at Nina like she was a specimen under glass. That silence, that refusal to react, made Nina angrier. Are you even listening to me? Nina snapped. Every word. Evelyn said quietly. Then, maybe you should take the hint and... Mrs. Rogers. A new voice. Sharp. Urgent. A man in a navy suit pushed through the crowd. Mitchell Grant, Rogers Group CFO. Evelyn recognized him from the files. He looked pale, frantic, like he'd just sprinted across the ballroom. Not now, Mitchell, Nina said without looking at him. It's the contract, Mitchell said, voice low but not low enough. Harris Consolidated its legal team just sent an amendment. They're asking for her. I said not now. Nina's voice was ice. Mitchell's mouth snapped shut. He glanced at Evelyn, really looked at her for the first time, and something flickered across his face. Confusion, then recognition, then horror. He opened his mouth to speak. Nina cut him off. Get security. I want this woman removed. Mitchell didn't move, just stared at Evelyn, realization dawning too slow and far too late. Evelyn checked her watch. 9:46 p.m. One more minute. Security never came. Instead, the lights dimmed. A spotlight flared to life, cutting to the ballroom's golden glow and landing square on the stage where Jace and Nina had been standing minutes earlier. The band fell silent mid-note. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC's voice boomed to the sound system, warm and practiced. If we could have everyone's attention, please. Mr. and Mrs. Rogers will now address the evening's main event, the official signing ceremony with Harris Consolidated. Applause erupted. Genuine this time. Excited. The room had been waiting for this all night. Nina's head snapped toward the stage. For just a second, maybe less, her mask slipped completely. Evelyn saw it. The flash of panic. The recalculation. Then it was gone, replaced by that flawless, camera-ready smile. We'll finish this later, Nina hissed, already turning away. Jay straightened his tie, shot Evelyn one last warning glare, and followed his wife toward the spotlight. Their stride was confident, rehearsed, the kind of walk that said we own this room. They climbed the stage steps to thunderous applause, waving like royalty. Nina's emerald gown caught the light perfectly. Jace's smile was blinding. They looked untouchable. Evelyn stayed exactly where she was, half hidden behind the marble column, watching. Thank you, Jay said into the microphone, hands raised to quiet the crowd. Tonight is a culmination of years of hard work, strategic vision, and, let's be honest, a little bit of fate. Laughter. Right on cue. Nina leaned into the microphone, her voice honey-sweet. When we first heard that Harris Consolidated was interested in partnering with Rogers Group, we were honored, humbled, even. This isn't just a business deal. It's a validation of everything we built here. More applause. Phones up again, but this time recording something worth celebrating. Jace draped an arm around Nina's shoulders. The picture of a power couple. Harris Consolidated is legendary for their discretion, for moving in silence, for choosing partners who share their values of excellence, integrity, and, he paused for effect, respect. That last word hung in the air. Evelyn's expression didn't change, but something cold settled in her chest. We still haven't met the principal owner in person, Nina added with a light laugh, glancing around the room as if the mystery investor might be hiding in the crowd. But we're told they're here tonight, watching, observing. The room stirred. Excited murmurs, heads turning, guests scanning faces, wondering who among them was the elusive ghost behind Harris Consolidated. "Whoever you are," Jay said, raising his champagne glass toward the crowd, "thank you for believing in us. Thank you for seeing what Rogers Group can become. And thank you," his smile widened, "for trusting us to treat this partnership with the respect it deserves." A toast. 300 glasses raised in unison. Evelyn didn't lift hers. Nina's eyes swept the ballroom one more time, sharp and searching. For a heartbeat, her gaze landed on Evelyn, still standing by the column, still dressed like staff, still watching with that unreadable expression. Nina's smile tightened. Then she looked away, dismissing her entirely. Jace gestured toward a table near the stage where 2 leather-bound contract folders sat waiting. "So without further delay, let's make this official. Let's sign the deal that will transform Rogers Group forever." The applause was deafening. Evelyn checked her watch again. 9:47 p.m. Time was up. Nina saw her first. The spotlight still bathed the stage in white gold light, but Nina's attention had drifted back to the column where Evelyn stood. That woman, still there, still watching with that infuriating, unreadable calm. Nina's smile never wavered, but her eyes went cold. She leaned toward Jace, lips barely moving. "She's still here." Jace followed her gaze. His jaw tightened. "Ignore her. We'll deal with it after." "No." Nina's voice was quiet steel. "We deal with it now." She stepped away from the microphone, champagne glass still in hand, and descended the stage steps with the grace of someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. The crowd parted instinctively. Jace hesitated for half a second, then followed, his expression darkening with each step. They crossed the ballroom floor like predators closing in on wounded prey. Evelyn didn't move, just watched them come. Nina stopped 3 feet away, closer than before, invading space like a challenge. "I thought I made myself clear," she said, voice low enough that only the nearest guest could hear. "But they were hearing and filming. You need to leave. Now." "No," Evelyn said simply. The word hit like a slap. Jace's face flushed red. "Excuse me? I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Nina's laugh was sharp and ugly. "You're standing in a VIP section, dressed like you're about to serve drinks at our company's event, and you think—" She stopped mid-sentence, eyes narrowing. "Wait, I know what this is. You're one of those people who buys a cheap suit and crashes high-end events hoping to get noticed, hoping someone will mistake you for someone important?" Evelyn finished. "Someone relevant," Nina corrected, her smile vicious now. "But here's the thing, sweetheart. You're not. You're just another desperate social climber who thought she could blend in." She gestured at Evelyn's outfit with disgust. "Did you even try? Or did you think dressing like the help would make you invisible?" "It did," Evelyn said quietly, "until I wanted to be seen." That stopped Nina cold, just for a second. Then her expression twisted into something uglier. "You know what? I've had enough of this." Nina turned to the nearest server, a young woman holding a tray of dirty glasses. "You, give me that cloth." The server blinked, confused. "Ma'am, the cloth, the one you're using to wipe tables." The girl pulled a damp bar towel from her apron and handed it over hesitantly. Nina turned back to Evelyn, holding the stained cloth like evidence. Since you're dressed for the job, why don't you make yourself useful? There's a spill near table 12. Clean it. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Every phone in a 10-foot radius was pointed at them now. The whole room had stopped pretending not to watch. Evelyn looked at the cloth, then at Nina, then back at the cloth. No, she said again. Nina's face went white with rage. And then, without warning, without hesitation, Nina lifted her champagne glass and poured the entire contents directly onto Evelyn's head. The red wine hit like a waterfall. Cold, shocking. It soaked through Evelyn's hair, streamed down her face, stained her white shirt, dripped onto the marble floor in dark, spreading pools. Gasps erupted. Someone screamed. Phones surged forward, capturing every angle, every drop, every second of the humiliation. Jay stood frozen, mouth open, like he couldn't believe what his wife had just done. Nina stood there, glass empty, chest heaving, eyes wild with triumph and fury. And Evelyn didn't move. She just stood there, wine dripping from her chin, staining her tuxedo, pooling at her feet, and smiled. Evelyn reached up slowly, deliberately, and wiped the wine from her eyes with the back of her hand. The red stain spread across her fingers like blood. The ballroom was silent. 300 people holding their breath, waiting to see what happened next. Nina's chest was still heaving, her empty glass trembling slightly in her grip. She looked triumphant and terrified all at once, like she just won a battle but couldn't remember why she'd started the war. Jace finally found his voice. Nina, what the hell? She deserved it. Nina snapped, but her voice cracked at the edges. Evelyn said nothing. She just looked at Nina for one long, measured moment, then at Jace, then at the crowd of guests frozen in a perfect circle around them, phones raised like witnesses at an execution. She didn't apologize, didn't cry, didn't rage. She simply turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Steady, unhurried, wine dripped from her hair with each step, leaving a trail of dark spots across the pristine marble floor. No one moved. No one spoke. Evelyn pushed through the ballroom's double doors and let them swing shut behind her with a soft, final click. The hallway outside was empty, quiet. The sound of the gala, music, laughter, the clinking of glasses, were muffled now, distant, like they belonged to a different world entirely. Evelyn walked 20 feet down the corridor, then stopped. She pulled her phone from her jacket pocket. The screen was clean. She'd been careful to keep it away from the wine. She wiped her hands on her already ruined shirt, unlocked it with a swipe, and pulled up a contact. Graham Peterson, General Counsel, Harris Consolidated. 1 ring. 2. Evelyn. Graham's voice was sharp, alert despite the late hour. Are you all right? I saw, Jesus, someone just sent me a video. Terminate the agreement, Evelyn said. Her voice was calm. Cold. Lock all accounts. Announce the breach immediately. Silence on the other end. Then you're sure? Completely? Evelyn, if we pull out now, Rogers Group doesn't just lose the deal. They lose their credit line, their operating capital. They'll be insolvent by morning. I know. Another pause. Longer this time. What happened in there? Evelyn looked down at her wine-soaked jacket, at the red stain spreading across the white marble beneath her feet, like spilled paint. They show me exactly who they are, she said quietly. Now I'm showing them what that costs. Understood. Graham's tone shifted. Efficient now, all business. I'll have legal draft the termination notice within the hour. The financial holds will be in place by 10:15. Do you want a public statement? No, let the video speak for itself. It already is. It's everywhere. Good. Evelyn ended the call. She stood there for a moment in the empty hallway, phone still in her hand, wine still dripping from her hair. Somewhere behind those ballroom doors, Nina and Jace Rogers were probably celebrating, toasting their victory, laughing about the nobody they'd just humiliated in front of the city's elite. They had 12 minutes left before their entire world collapsed. Evelyn slipped her phone back into her pocket, straightened her shoulders, and walked toward the exit. She didn't look back. The music had started again, cautiously at first, then louder, trying to drown out the awkwardness that had settled over the Ashford Grand Ballroom like fog. Guests returned to their tables, voices low, eyes still glancing toward the doors where the wine-soaked woman had disappeared. Nina stood frozen near the stage, empty glass still in her hand. Her emerald dress suddenly felt too tight, too visible. Jace grabbed her elbow, his grip harder than necessary. What the hell were you thinking? She was disrespecting us, Nina stammered. In our own event, I wasn't going to just... You assaulted someone on camera, Nina, at the most important night of our company's history. She was nobody, some party crasher who... The music cut off mid-note. The sudden silence was deafening. Every head in the ballroom turned toward the stage where the MC stood, one hand pressed to his earpiece, his face drained of color. He looked like he'd just been told someone had died. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice tight, "I apologize for the interruption, but I've just received an urgent message from..." He paused, listening to something only he could hear. "From the event coordinators. There's been a development regarding tonight's partnership announcement." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Confused, concerned, Mitchell Grant appeared from nowhere, pushing through guests with the desperation of a drowning man. He reached the stage in seconds, took the stairs two at a time, and grabbed the MC's microphone. "Where's Jace?" Mitchell's voice cracked through the speakers. "Where's he? We need to..." Jace was already moving, Nina stumbling behind him in her heels. They reached the stage just as Mitchell turned, and the look on the CFO's face made Nina's stomach drop. "What's wrong?" Jace demanded. Mitchell held up his phone. His hand was shaking. "Harris Consolidated just sent this 30 seconds ago." Jace grabbed the phone and read the screen. His face went white, then gray, then something close to green. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not. They can't." "What?" Nina's voice climbed an octave. "What does it say?" Mitchell took the microphone again, his voice hollow. "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that Harris Consolidated has formally terminated the partnership agreement with Rogers Group, effective immediately." The ballroom erupted. Shouts, gasps, chairs scraping back as guests surged to their feet, investors pulling out their phones, faces twisted in panic, board members rushing toward the stage, demanding answers. "That's not possible," Jay said, still staring at the phone like it might change the words if he looked long enough. "We haven't even signed yet. The deal isn't..." "There's more." Mitchell's voice was barely audible over the chaos. "They've frozen our operating accounts. All of them. Credit lines, capital reserves, everything. They're citing..." He stopped, looking at Nina with something close to horror. "Citing breach of character conduct clauses." Nina felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Behind them, the ballroom's massive projection screen, the one they planned to use for celebratory photos, flickered to life. Someone had cast their phone screen to it, and there, 10 feet tall and crystal clear, was a video. Nina, arm raised, the wine pouring in slow motion. The woman's face, calm, unflinching, as red liquid streamed down her features. The timestamp read, Posted 4 minutes ago. 847,000 views. Oh, God, Nina breathed. The room exploded into chaos. The video kept playing on loop, over and over. The whine, the humiliation. Nina's face twisted in rage. 10 feet tall for everyone to see. The views were climbing. 847,000, 923,000, 1.1 million. Turn it off. Nina screamed. Someone turn that off. No one moved to help her. Guests were too busy on their own phones, reading the flood of articles already hitting business news sites. Twitter was on fire. LinkedIn was exploding. The video had gone viral in under 5 minutes. Jay stood frozen on the stage, Mitchell's phone still in his hand. Staring at the termination, noticed like it might rearrange itself into something that made sense. Who is she? Jace's voice was barely a whisper. Who the hell was that woman? Mitchell opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then someone else spoke. A voice from the crowd. Robert Castellano, one of Rogers Group's earliest investors. 72 years old, worth 9 figures, and currently looking at Jace like he'd just set fire to a pile of money. You don't know? Robert's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You just humiliated someone at your own event, and you don't even know who she was? She was a party crasher, Nina said desperately. Some nobody trying to... That was Evelyn Harris. The name landed like a bomb. Every conversation stopped. Every phone lowered. Every eye in the ballroom turned toward Robert. Nina's voice came out strangled. That's not... Harris Consolidated as a company. That's not a person's name. Yes, it is. Robert's expression was something between pity and disgust. Evelyn Harris founded the firm 8 years ago when she was 20. Built it from nothing. She's worth somewhere north of $300 million, though no one knows exactly because she keeps everything private, doesn't do interviews, doesn't attend public events, operates entirely in the shadows. Jace was shaking his head. That can't be right. That woman was... She looked like... Like what? Robert's voice hardened. Too young? Too simply dressed? Not important enough for you to bother learning her name before you let your wife dump wine on her head in front of 300 witnesses. Nina grabbed the edge of the podium for support. Her knees were giving out. We didn't know. How were we supposed to? She was your investor, Robert said flatly. Your only investor willing to save the sinking ship. And you treated her like garbage because she wasn't wearing the right dress. Mitchell finally found his voice. The contract. It had a clause. I tried to tell you earlier. Character conduct standards. Harris Consolidated reserves the right to terminate immediately if leadership demonstrates. He read from his own phone now. Voice hollow. A pattern of behavior inconsistent with the values of dignity, respect, and ethical treatment of all individuals regardless of status or position. Jace looked like he might vomit. She was testing us, Mitchell continued. The whole time. That's why she dressed like that. She wanted to see how we treated people we thought didn't matter. Nina's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the stage. And we failed, Jace whispered. Robert turned toward the exit. Half the ballroom followed him. Investors, board members, partners, all heading for the doors like the building was on fire. Because, in a way, it was... Wait! Nina called after them. Please, we can fix this. We can apologize. We can... No one turned back. The ballroom was emptying, fast, and the video kept playing. The next morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of dawn that felt like a verdict. Nina and Jace Rogers sat in the lobby of the Ashford Grand Hotel, the same building where, 12 hours earlier, they'd been toasting their future. Now they were waiting like criminals outside a courtroom, exhausted and hollow-eyed, wearing yesterday's formal wear because they hadn't been able to face going home. The video had hit 10 million views overnight. News outlets were calling it the most expensive glass of wine in corporate history. Think pieces were already being written. Business school professors were lining up to use it as a case study in catastrophic leadership failure. Rogers Group stock had plummeted at opening bell. Creditors were circling. 3 board members had resigned before sunrise. The company had maybe 48 hours before insolvency became bankruptcy, and Evelyn Harris hadn't answered a single call. Until now. She's here, Mitchell said quietly, appearing in the lobby doorway. His tie was gone. His shirt was wrinkled. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. 5th floor. Conference room B. She'll give you 5 minutes. Nina stood on shaking legs. Jace followed, his face gray and drawn. They took the elevator in silence. The doors opened on the 5th floor, and there, at the end of the long hallway, they saw her. Evelyn Harris stood by a floor-to-ceiling window, silhouetted against the morning light. She'd changed clothes. Tailor gray suit now, hair down, no wine stains. She looked clean, composed, powerful, everything they weren't. Ms. Harris. Jay started, his voice cracking. Thank you for agreeing to. I didn't agree to anything, Evelyn said without turning around. I'm here because watching you beg over the phone was pathetic. I wanted to see if you'd do it in person. Nina stepped forward, hands clasped like prayer. Please, we made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we can fix this. We can make it right. Just tell us what you want. What I want. Evelyn finally turned to face them. Her expression was perfectly calm, perfectly cold. I wanted to do business with people who understood that respect isn't a luxury you extend only to those you think deserve it. I wanted partners who treated a 20-year-old server with the same dignity they'd show a billionaire investor. We didn't know who you were, Jay said desperately. Exactly. Evelyn's voice was quiet steel. You didn't know, so you assumed I was nobody, and you treated me accordingly. Please, Nina whispered. We'll lose everything. You already have. Evelyn picked up her briefcase on the conference table, walked past them toward the elevator. She stopped at the threshold, one hand on the doorframe. You want to know the worst part? She said, not looking back. If you'd just been kind, if you treated me like a human being for 5 minutes, you'd be signing a multi-million-dollar deal right now. Your company would be saved. Your future would be secure. She pressed the elevator button. But you couldn't manage even that, because somewhere along the way, you convinced yourselves that kindness was optional, that people's worth was determined by whether you found them useful. The elevator doors opened. Evelyn stepped inside and finally turned to face them one last time. You didn't lose everything because I'm vindictive, she said. You lost everything because you show me exactly who you are when you think no one important is watching. The door slid shut. Nina collapsed against the wall, sliding down until she hit the floor. Jay stood frozen, staring at the closed elevator doors like they might open again, like she might come back, like there was any possible universe where this ended differently. But there wasn't. The verdict was final, and the stain was permanent. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Echoverse as we bring you more incredible stories.